Hi friends, welcome back to On Location. We're here in Cranbrook. I'm your host, Zara Durrani. The show is produced with the support of TELUS STORYHIVE. And today I'm here at Cranbrook Arts, and what wonderful timing. The artist I'm about to introduce you to used to call Cranbrook home. He is currently visiting as he's living in the UK, and he is having his art showcased here. So, Joel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
What great synchronicity.
It's perfect timing.
So many things in common. I'm slightly jealous of his life right now because he's living in the UK. You probably get to travel a lot.
I do get to travel a lot, yeah.
Honestly, I used to live in Paris, as you folks know. But I want to backtrack a bit and then we'll dig into your art because it really gives me that fantasy vibe. Makes me think of Alice in Wonderland a little bit, but it's more like Joel in Wonderland. You know, and it's giving me Joel experiencing and exploring the world. But let's back up.
Okay.
Since you used to live in Cranbrook, what were you doing when you were living here?
So when I was living here full time, I was working in education, in special education. I really like teaching and working with students, but art has always been my kind of dream job. So as a kid, I always wanted to be an artist. I just didn't know what that meant. I always wanted to be an animator at Disney. That was sort of my dream job. And in my head, that's just what I thought I was going to be when I was an adult.
It's very specific, animator.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of make whimsical stories come to life. And I was a huge fan of Disney animated movies when I was a kid. And I just wanted to be a part of that magic. So that's why I was really lucky when I came across Photoshop and kind of using a camera to combine different elements to create maybe images that I couldn't draw, but I could create in that way that really fit that idea. It's using your imagination as kind of a light or a beacon of hope to get you through maybe a difficult time. And certainly art has been that for myself. Whenever I've been going through a difficult time, the art of creating is a really cathartic and helpful way to work yourself through something. So I always recommend to people, if they're going through any sort of a struggle or a difficult time, to just try and create something from it. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be good, it doesn't have to be something you show to anyone, but that act of taking whatever you're feeling and making something out of it can really help you work your way through whatever you're feeling. And a lot of these images are a reflection of kind of looking for inspiration or looking for hope, or kind of using that idea of kind of a search for imagination, or using imagination to find something better or more creative or better for the world. And so it is a common theme in a lot of my work, for sure.
That's beautiful. So when you were teaching, you were teaching what grade?
I was an education assistant in special education in the high school. So it was grades 10, 11, and 12 is where I spent most of the time that I was in the school system. And I really loved it because it allowed me the opportunity to get really involved in other people's learning and young people's learning, and just see how different approaches can work with different people. And I think that experience working with students that required a lot of different types of support, it really showed me how we can make the world a lot more accessible for different types of people. And I use a lot of that even in the work that I'm doing now. And when I teach photography, or I teach...
You teach photography?
I do teach photography and do workshops and kind
That's fantastic.
And teach how to do this. I've been able to use those skills that I had in this as well. And it's been really great to be able to combine those two interests and passions in my own life.
That's beautiful. So when did you make the decision? What made you, first of all, and then we'll talk about current day, what made you, what gave you the idea that perhaps I want to close this door, close this chapter? And it's a big leap of faith because I've been there. For me, it happened after I lost my mother, and it was her desire to live in France. And I'd been to France once before, and I knew the feelings Paris brought up inside of me. And I heard about the working holiday visa, and I always had this idea, I'll go there with a partner on my honeymoon, this and that. But when I first entered Paris and I was standing on Pont Alexandre III, I just knew Paris is my lover. I don't need anyone. And I made that decision. So I want to hear that story because it's a big, brave step. And especially when you've lived in Cranbrook all your life, you were born here. and to say, okay, au revoir, ta-ta, cheerio.
It was sort of a decision that was made for me in a way. So I was working full time and I was doing photography at the same time and just kind of working on my own, doing my own creative projects. And then I started to get a little bit more noticed and started to get some commissioned work.
And it was still work similar to this?
Yeah, it was really creative, whimsical work. And I was, this was kind of before Instagram time and before there was a lot of other people doing kind of similar stuff. And so I was kind of lucky that there wasn't a lot of other people doing what I was doing. And so I started working, getting, jobs for magazines or book covers and doing different commissioned work. And it started to get to the point where I was balancing almost 2 full-time jobs, which was pretty tough. But I had been given this really amazing opportunity to work with Coke on a project, creating some images for them.
Wait a second. Okay, back up. Coke, what? Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola, yeah.
Okay, no big deal.
The big brand.
It's not just like a little mom and pop, which we totally appreciate. It's Coca-Cola.
Yeah,
that is a big deal.
They found me online, just sharing my work online, and they asked if I would work with them on a project for a year, just creating whimsical pieces of work to inspire.
Around the holidays, because I think this would be so perfect for the holidays.
Yeah, so I did it all throughout the whole year, and it was really based around getting other people excited about the brand and also wanting to create art using the brand as well. So it was like a way to inspire artists to
Are we able to see those images?
They do exist kind of out there in the world.
Okay, we could Google them?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
And so because of that project, I kind of was welcomed into this whole other world of working with this massive brand. And when that project ended, I didn't really know what was going to come next.
And how big, how long did that take you? Like a year?
It took a year. And at the end of that project, I went down to Atlanta, and then they pretty much offered me a job to work on the FIFA World Cup trophy tour. So, I can't say that before that happened, I was a massive football or soccer fan, but I became one.
It is such a vibe. Okay, I was in Paris for the Soccer World Cup in 2018. And I started watching from the, the qualifiers up to the quarterfinals up to, so I was there when, so now I follow soccer.
Follow football.
Soccer.
So I was asked pretty much, I was still working full time and asked to join them on this world tour that they were doing. So they take the World Cup trophy on a global world tour before the World Cup. And they were going for about an 8-month world tour to 87 countries. And they wanted me to join them as a photographer and storyteller. And so they kind of just said, you pretty much have to say yes or no. What is it going to be? And so the choice was made pretty much for me.
What is that?
So,
do you even have? Don't tell me you thought about it overnight. It's like yes. I would be like yes.
I didn't have a lot of time to think about it, even if I did want to think about it. But I had to take the leap, and so it was a challenge.
If you don't mind me asking, how old were you when this happened?
I was 29 when that happened. So it changed my whole life. I kind of liken it to, it was just a total shift to a different life. So
the universe had different plans for you.
Yeah, so I was happy to have had the opportunities that I had, but it allowed me this chance that I might not have had otherwise to just completely shift into this dream that I had always had, which is being an artist. And so I worked on that trip and with FIFA for a year. And then when that finished, I kind of realized I could do whatever I wanted now. I didn't have any strong ties back here because I had left my job and I had moved out of my apartment. And so I didn't really know what to do. And so I just looked up easy places to move to, and the UK was one of them. And that's how I ended up there, was just getting a visa.
And I think it probably opened your heart and your eyes, and you probably had some wanderlust because there was a whole new world. It's like a big world out there. And I don't know if being an artist and being a creative, I live a lot in this world. So, and I look at signs, and especially when you're the type of person who pack up and close one doors and move somewhere else. And for me, the Paris journey I likened it to The Alchemist.
Okay, yeah.
And it's like listening to the signs. Yeah. So there's something about when I hear a story and I look at your images, it makes me think of the boy.
Yeah, definitely.
Looking for his treasure.
Yeah, and a lot of the images are I mean, they're all self-portraits, they're all pictures of me, but there are a lot of images of like searching for something or looking for something or trying to find something. And I think that is because we as people are always trying to find that thing that makes us happy, that makes us feel calm, or that makes us feel accepted, or that makes us feel good. And so I want kind of the art to show that, you know, that journey can look really whimsical and fun, and it doesn't have to be scary, it doesn't have to be heavy, it can be part of the story is looking for it. And when you say Alice in Wonderland, that was, as a kid growing up, that was the one story that I was drawn to the most was Alice in Wonderland. And when you talk about signs that you're in the right place, when I moved to the UK, the first place that I lived in was a town that Alice in Wonderland, the author Lewis Carroll, that he lived in, that he's buried in. And I didn't know that when I chose that town. It's in Guildford in Surrey. And I didn't know that when I chose that place to live. I just found this place with a great group of people to live with. And when I found out that, you know, the author of the story that I had loved so much, that influenced so much of my work, was now, you know, buried in the same town that I was living in.
I'm getting chills.
It was
right
just
now.
like, it was sort of a nod that you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, you're in the right
path,
place.
So.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of young kids. I hope they get to come here tomorrow, and I hope they've had the opportunity to see your work, because I think it would plant a seed.
Definitely.
And I think that's why art is so important.
Yeah, I think it's been really nice. I have friends that are still teaching at the high school, and they are art teachers, and I know that they brought their students here. And I've seen, you know, pictures of the students looking at the art and experiencing the art. And that's, I think, why it's so important to have galleries like this that are accessible and open and welcoming to students. And I think Cranbrook Arts is a great resource for the community, because it is so focused on everyone in the community, regardless of your age, regardless of your experience of art, regardless of how much money you have, it doesn't matter. You're here to get to be a part of it together. And, you know, I love when I get to see little kids looking at my photos, because they just have a different take on it. And I still get a lot of messages from people online saying, you know, every night we look through your pictures on Facebook and my kids come up with stories, or like they want to know like what story behind this one. And
I'm so curious about this. And I think it's a bit of character, but obviously it's you know, like this is like here you in plaid and in a plaid shirt, and this here I right away I'm thinking of, you know, Lord of the Rings, like that kind of like in the search, you know, the search of your treasure. So I'm reading here on your website, your work has taken you across 80 countries.
Yeah, it's now
counting.
92 countries I've been to. So I'm getting close to 100. Update my website now. But yeah, I've been really fortunate. I mean, a lot of those countries were part of working with FIFA and getting to experience that with them. But then after, like you said, I did get kind of bit by the wanderlust bug, and I just wanted to see more of the world. And I've been really lucky to get to do that as an artist, and to teach all around the world, and to show my photos all around the world, and to meet people all around the world. And wherever I get to go, I try to create something there so that I can have my story be a part of wherever I was, and have that story be a part of who I am as well.
That's beautiful. And it's the Oprah magazine.
Yeah, it was a good one.
So no big deal. What's one piece of advice you find yourself giving emerging artists or photographers, or even when you go to a school and, you know, maybe perhaps from here, people reach out to you and say, hey, your story, I went to your exhibit and I saw the fact that you're from Cranbrook and now you've had this career. You know, what advice would you give to me? I always try to just tell people to just try it. Like, you don't have to be good at it, and you probably won't be good at it the first few times that you do it. And like, whenever I've tried to do anything new, the first time is frustrating, and the second time is maybe a little less frustrating, but it's still not where you want it to be. And it takes a lot of repetition, and it takes a lot of trial and error to really feel comfortable doing what you're doing, and to feel like you're doing it in the way that you want to see yourself getting better at. And I think when I first started, it was a lot of trying things out and practicing and playing around with it without expecting it to be good. And I think we live in a world where we're really lucky, where we can create something and we don't have to show it to anyone. We can delete it and pretend it never existed. And that's great. I think that everyone should just try making something, just trying it, just letting yourself daydream. Risking failure. How do you ground yourself, B, find inspiration, and C, unwind?
Those are good questions. I don't take myself too seriously, which I think is a big part of it. I think, you know, as an artist, you have to be willing to experience whatever's happening in the world and just meet it where it is. And I don't take myself too seriously. So I just enjoy doing what I do and getting to do what I do. And so I think that's how I keep myself grounded, is just by, you know, this is my passion and it's my job, but it's not the only thing about me that is interesting or that I like to do. And so that keeps me pretty grounded. In terms of inspiration, I kind of like to tell people when they ask what I do or like, what is your job? I like to say I'm a professional daydreamer. So
I love that.
Part of my job role and my job description is daydreaming. It's just shutting everything else off and just letting my brain totally unwind. And it is a struggle.
And how do you do that? Is that like meditation for you? Is that reading a book or writing or doodling?
Yeah,
what are you doing?
It's usually going out into nature, which is really what inspired this series of images, was that I was feeling really disconnected from myself and feeling really overwhelmed with kind of technology and AI and just like panicking about all that stuff and how detached we were getting from the world around us. And so when I thought about myself and like, what makes you feel good or what makes you feel relaxed or where do you get your inspiration from, it was always being out in nature and amongst trees. And so I spend a lot of time walking and running and just being in nature. And so that's when I get to daydream, is just being out in nature, removed from technology, and just...
Do you leave your phone at home?
Leave it in my pocket. Like, I don't have music on, and I just kind of let my mind just start unraveling. And it's just whatever the big things are that it rests on, I think about, okay, if that's what's on my mind, how can I take that and create something from it? What does that look like? How could I explain that to someone? And if they didn't know what it looked like to them, how would I express that to them? And that's usually where an image comes from, is trying to explain that feeling to someone in a visual way. And that also helps me unwind as well, is that I get to be out in nature and I get to be out, you know, just removed from whatever's going on in the world and just by myself and just enjoying that time. So that is how I unwind, is actually just daydreaming and just, you know, getting a chance to be out there.
Can you walk us through this exhibit? And I know we've talked about quite a few of the themes, but what are some of the themes and stories, and over how long of a period of time are these photos from? Because, and I'm also curious about, you know, mixing Photoshop and the fact that these are real photos, it's not AI.
No.
And yeah, just walk us through the exhibit.
So the photos, I came up with the idea at the end of 2023. Like I said, I was feeling a bit of disconnect between myself and the world around me. And there was kind of two events that happened almost at the same time that really got me thinking about trees specifically. And one was, I read a book called The Overstory, which is this amazing story about 9 strangers that are connected by trees. And it just was one of the best books I've ever read.
Okay, I'm gonna have to read it.
It was just incredible. And then shortly after that, there was a tree in the UK that was cut down called the Sycamore Gap tree. And it was a really famous tree. It was used in, you know, movies, and it was a really recognizable tree. And 2 people just cut it down in the middle of the night. And it just caused this overwhelming sense of kind of national grief in the UK. And I'd never seen that about something that wasn't a person. And people were upset about it. It was on the news. You could just hear people talking about it on the street, about how upset they were that this tree was cut down. And it got me thinking about how we do appreciate them when they're gone, but not maybe when they're still around us. And so I started to really think about trees from those 2 experiences. And then as I was coming to the end of the year, I was thinking about, what do I want to create in 2024? It was the year I was turning 40, and I was like, I feel like there's pressure to make it like a good project for that year. How do I want to mark my 40th year? And I was walking in the forest, and I came across this tree that people had decorated in the middle of the woods as a Christmas tree. And it was all ornaments that were in memory of people that enjoyed spending time in that forest walking when they were alive. And it kind of was just like a very poignant thing to just see while I was thinking about it. And all those three things together just pushed me towards wanting to create with trees. And so all the images were created between January 1st and December 31st in 2024. So.
Amazing. I'm curious, and I'm sure so are perhaps a lot of people out there, that as a creative, as an artist, how has your artistic voice evolved over the last decade or so? And how do you find yourself I'll speak for myself, when the little critters of fear that start talking about what the others are saying.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that inner critic?
I think as an artist, I think that's one of the worst parts about being an artist, is that you do leave yourself really open to criticism, whether it's self-criticism or whether it's criticism from others. But I try to just remind myself that I'm doing the best that I can, and that no one's making me do this, that I'm doing it because I want to do it, and that there's no schedule. You don't have to be productive as you are in the same way that a 9-to-5 job is. And I think that when you relieve yourself of the pressure of expectation or what I'm supposed to be doing, it really does change how you approach it. And so when I look at a project, I kind of have to remind myself that no one's forcing me to do this, even if it's a commission or even if it's a piece of work that I'm doing for someone else. I'm doing this because I love it, not because I'm being forced to do it, but also that I'm trusting myself that I can do a really good job of experiencing what I'm experiencing and putting it into the work that I'm doing, and that I get to do that. I can see myself changing throughout the images that I've created over the years. A lot of them still have that similar theme of hope or wanting, that goodness or that light to remain in the world or to be found in the world. So that's a common theme in the last 10 years of my work. But I think for me, I can see how the storytelling has evolved and how I've worked towards more concise storytelling or more connected emotional storytelling to how I'm feeling. Whereas before, when I was first starting, maybe I was a little bit more hesitant to be vulnerable or to show people different parts of the artistic expression that I had. But now I feel more confident in doing that.
I'm so happy we got to meet today.
Definitely, it was perfect timing.
And great timing, and to do this and totally unplanned. But I'm someone who believes in energy and synchronicity, and congratulations on this, but also on all the chances you're taking on life, on living life on your terms, the way you want it, to start, restart, stop, slow down, make art, and then opening yourself up to receive that love, to receive that criticism, and like Andy Warhol said, while they're busy critiquing my art, I'm just going to be busy making more art. So
exactly.
Joel, it was a pleasure.
It was really nice to meet you.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup.